Would stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, commissioners, you get an opportunity to review the minutes from last month. Any additions, deletions, motions?
Move the motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and probably made second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. I will turn it over to Mr. Tyndall for announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. First announcement, commissioners, before you today, in paper form is calling it the 2024 Clarksville Montgomery County Regional Planning Commission Annual Report. This is something I promised the elected bodies that when we adopted the comprehensive plan back in May and April of last year, that we would put together an annual report of where we're at on it, a little more of a snapshot of what the Planning Commission accomplished in the calendar year of 2024. And this is our first attempt at that. We're pretty proud of it. I want to give Silas in our office a pretty big kudos for laying this out and looking pretty sharp there. This will be presented to City Council on Thursday and handed out to them. It'll be handed out to the County Commission next Monday, or probably 2 Mondays from now, when they meet, and it'll be available on our website likely this Friday. So we'll definitely get it out on Facebook and on the website for the public to look at. But again, it's just a real short synopsis of what we've been accomplishing in 2024, and it's our intent every year going forward in the first quarter to have a report that comes out that says this is what the Planning Commission has accomplished in the year before. If you have any questions, I know you just got it, the final copy today, but just give me an email or shout out if you need any help looking at that. All right, we do have a few deferrals and withdrawals today. We'll go through the page by page here. The first case would be Z13 on page 3. Case number 5, Z13 2025, application of David Merrill, a 1-month deferral. Case number 6, Z15 2025, New Visions renovations. This has been withdrawn. On the next page, on page 4, Z18 2025. 1-month deferral for James Page on Dover Road. On the next page, case 11, Z04 2024, digital message boards, lighting regulations deferred. Should have the final copy next month on that one. Moving over to the subdivisions, also on page 5, V4 2025, the variance for Ligon Home Builders on Ann Drive and Bell Road, deferred today. That'll be moved to next month. As well as case number 13, S11 2025, application of Gold Landing by Ligon Home Builders, also deferred till next month. Moving on to the site reviews on page 8. Case number 18, SR12 2025, application of Brian Johnson for Johnson Self Storage, deferred a month. Number 19, SR13 2025, the Willow Condos at Madison, application of Chris Blackwell has been withdrawn. On the next page, number 20, SR 17, 2025, Gracie General Partnership, the Joseph, deferred 1 month. It did not pass Common Design Review Board yesterday. And on the final page, number 10 there, 23, SR 20, 2025, Turner and Associates for Dollar General on 1000 Creek Way, deferred 1 month. Brad's that all of them? Okay. Commissioners, I need a motion on the deferrals.
Motion to defer.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and probably made second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. All right, I'd like to remind the audience today that the zonings that we're voting on here today, they're just recommendations to the city council body and the county commission, and those next meetings where your cases are going to travel to are on the front page of your agendas today. And also, if you have any further questions after meeting later in the week, you can always contact the RPC yourself for any questions in the process. I'd also like to make you all aware, during the zonings, we're gonna open it up to public hearing. We're gonna open it up to public hearing, and there'll be 3 people allowed to speak against and 3 people allowed to speak in favor of each zoning case, and then the applicant will also get a moment to rebuttal any cases. And that's it. I'll turn it over to Mr. Spanhauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We'll start with our first city case, that is Z3-2025. It's the application of Bill Mace. The request is to go from C4 Highway Interchange District to C2 General Commercial District, and this is for a property located or fronting on the westbound I-24 right-of-way south of Tylertown Road, approximately 760 plus or minus feet east of Trenton Road and Tylertown Road intersection, and across from Ross Common Way. It's a fairly large tract that's level and prepared for development. It is in the North Clarksville planning area, and the applicant's statement for proposed use for this zone change was for retail, office, and multifamily development. The request does encompass 25.3 plus or minus acres. At the bottom of page 1, you'll see the department comments that were received in reference to this application. Gas and Water indicated a possible lift station upgrade would be required and a sewer main extension. The street department did not require a traffic assessment due to the reduction of potential trips in the zoning classification, and the city currently has a project underway to widen Tylertown Road, and that's currently under construction. And then you'll see the school system comments there on number 9. The impact of this use would be changes to the allowable uses to include permitting mixed use and multifamily residential. Currently accessible from Tylertown Road and Copperhead Road. Historical estimates, if this were to go full multifamily or a mixed use combination, would be 303 units. Again, it is in the North Clarksville planning area, and the future land use opinion map indicates this is regional commercial. The staff's recommendation is for disapproval. This request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. The property is located at Interstate Exit 1 of Interstate 24, and the C4 Commercial Highway Interchange District is the appropriate zoning classification for an interstate exit. The future land use opinion map for this area designates the property as regional commercial. This land use designation is intended to accommodate a large commercial and large employment centers that serve the greater region, high-density residential with densities greater than 16 units per acre. The proposed C2 commercial district does not align with the regional commercial designation. The scale of the C2 general commercial district request does not align with the overall comp plan goals to create a sustainable growth pattern and can have a negative impact on the planning area as it relates to the future regional commercial growth and the appropriate blend of future housing options. No environmental issues have been identified relative to this request. During our informal meeting, there was a question about the C2 designation, and I want to remind everyone that it does not go greater than 16 units per acre if there's allowable use, and that's one of the criteria for multifamily in the high-density residential designation for regional commercial. The next 2 pages, 4 and 5, are the aerial overviews of the request, and 5 is the zoning map overview of the request. We did receive a few phone calls for this application, but no one chose to leave a formal comment. If you have any questions for myself or the staff, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
All right, commissioners, any questions for staff? All right, we're gonna go into public hearing then. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of Z3-2025?
Thank you, Commissioner. Stanley Ross, 308 South 2nd Street. Mitchell Ross Racconi, I'm here on behalf of the applicant. We would like to ask you to approve our request or recommend to the City Council approval of our request. We are asking to go from C4 to C2. Mr. Spanhauer made some comments about why the staff doesn't think that's appropriate, but we do think it's a good use for the area. The plan is for retail space on the road frontage at Tylertown Road, then multifamily behind that. That retail space, there's not a plan to have like a leasing office in that space or anything. That would be self-contained on the multifamily area of the project. We're asking to do this because some of you may remember this property. If you were, it's been up before. There was a proposal to develop the entire tract there as a C4 project to serve interstate travelers. That did not go through for whatever reason. I've been told there was a way for that to move forward, but I think it would have required a private entity to rebuild the overpass there. So we've already had some roadblocks with C4 in this. This property's been marketed as C4 for the better part of 2 decades, and it doesn't really get a lot of traction. I think that one thing you've got to consider is we are leaving a piece of this tract as C4 and currently working on a deal to bring in a business to service interstate travelers. However, you're not going to find a lot of, if you're looking for things like hotels, that kind of thing, you're not going to find a lot of people interested in that kind of development in this area because you've got so much at Exit 4 already. So that creates some issues for us moving forward with this property zone C4. In terms of the acreage of the property, part of the rezoning request is going to be used for detention drainage areas, so the entire area would not be apartments. And like I said, we're keeping retail on the road frontage. So with that said, I would like to ask the commission to recommend approval of our request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, would anyone else like to speak in favor of Z3 2025? All right, seeing none, would anyone like to speak against Z3 2025? All right, we're going to exit public hearing and go into regular session. Commissioners?
I make a motion for disapproval. The request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion for disapproval and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of disapproval?
Aye.
All those against disapproval? All right, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to the next case, and this is for everyone in attendance today, it appears that the City Council executive session this Thursday will be located here, not at City Hall. I heard they're having a little bit of technical issues with the mic system over there this week, and they're waiting for a part to come in. I don't know about next Thursday's public hearing yet, so please watch the city press releases, Facebook. You can call the Planning Commission if there are any questions about that, and we'll try to get that information out as well to you. But this Thursday is only the presentation to City Council. It's not the public hearing, so you are welcome to attend, but it is not the public hearing. That will be next Thursday. Should be back at City Hall at 6 p.m. next Thursday, but this week we'll be here. It will be available to watch on the Planning Commission's YouTube channel because that's our cameras up there, and we'll try to get that out there as well so you can watch that meeting if you have any questions. If you have any other questions about that, please contact us after this meeting or tomorrow or Thursday morning. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. We'll go to Z7 2025, application of Rita Home Builders Incorporated. This is for an application to go from R2 Single Family Residential District to R4 Multiple Family Residential District. The location is north of West Concord Drive. The reason for the request stated by the applicant is for future building, and this request does encompass right at 1 acre. This would be an extension of the zoning classification. It's currently 2 residential lots with level building pads at the street level, and the back of the property drops off to a flood zone. It is in the Lafayette Peters Mill planning area. Following, you'll see the department comments that were received. Gas and Water stated they had no concerns listed. The City Street Department said lots are impacted by a FEMA flood zone. Maintain existing drainage easement from West Concord Drive on Lot 2 and construct an ADA compliant driveway apron or aprons to connect to the existing sidewalks. And then you'll see the historical estimates there of 12 units, and that's using the 12 units per acre that historically is developed in Clarksville. As stated, it is in Lafayette Peters Mill planted area. The future land use designation in our comp plan land use opinion map is for mixed residential neighborhood. The staff's recommendation is for approval. The request is consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. The R4 multifamily residential district request aligns with the mixed residential neighborhood designation and serves as a logical extension of the existing R4 multifamily residential district. The Lafayette Peters Mill planning area's general recommendation encourages a desirable mixture of affordable housing types throughout the area. Recent heavy rains and flooding have heightened awareness of the flooding potential within the MAP FEMA flood zone for this area. And while the rear portions of these two parcels fall within the floodplain, there remains adequate buildable area unaffected by encumbrances. And then engineering data was required before development to ensure no adverse effects on surrounding properties or conditions. The next page, you'll see the aerial overviews of the request. Then you'll see a zoning map overview of the request. And there is followed by written public comments that were received prior to yesterday's deadline. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
All right, commissioners, anything? All right, we're gonna go into public hearing. Would anyone like to speak in favor of Z7 2025?
Good afternoon. My name's Garrett Lindsay. I'm here on behalf of Rita Home Builders. On this case, we're asking for an extension of the R4 zoning. We touch it on the, I guess that would be the east side and also directly across the street. And we feel that it would be appropriate to rezone this to R4. And if y'all have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of Z7 2025?
Britt Little, Wiggly Brothers Engineering, 108 Center Point Drive. Rick asked me to be here and answer any technical questions that might come up about drainage.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of Z7 2025? Seeing none, would anyone like to speak against Z7 2025?
Daniel Fusella, 173 West Concord Drive. We're concerned about this changing from R2 to R4. My property is adjacent to the property that he wants to rezone. We feel like it's going to be detrimental to the neighborhood. Right now, there are apartments on the opposite side of the vacant lot, but it's separated by a drainage ditch and trees, lots of trees. During the summer, I really can't see those apartments. I understand that if this proposal goes through, that even when he builds it, he has to put in a buffer zone. That buffer zone is going to be really inadequate. It's going to change the nature of our subdivision. Our neighborhood is one of the legacy neighborhoods, originally built, started back in the 70s. And you're changing it where there's a clear separation now. That separation is going to be faded, and it's really going to be non-existent even with that buffer zone, because you go and come around this curve and boom, there's townhouses, and then the neighborhood is going to just change the nature of it. We are very concerned about the flooding. In 2010, the area behind my house and people on the Kirby that are on the opposite side behind my house, they flooded in 2010. When it just recently flooded again here a couple months ago, there was a lot more water. There was more water in the apartments that already existed. There was more water in our neighborhood, in my next door neighbor's house. There was more water in the houses of the people that lived directly behind us. With all the construction that has been going on and the development, the drainage system is not really accurate. I mean, can't keep up with the amount of water that's coming in. When you build another apartment complex or townhouses, that is going to really, it's going to have the water's not going to have any place to go. It's going to go into drainage and it's going to flood even worse. So I would really think that doing this upgrade, or not an upgrade, but doing this project would increase the losses that people are already experienced. My house, who didn't get water in 2010, got water in it here in 2025. Thank you. Oh, one other thing real quick. We do have over 100 signatures from our neighbors, and sorry, I didn't realize I was supposed to turn this in yesterday.
Is this a copy?
No, it's the original.
Okay. If you want to come back, we can get we'll keep it for now. We can give you a copy back.
I have a copy of it.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's fine.
fine.
If you don't
Thank
want
you.
to look at that.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak against Z7 2025?
My name is Todd Hood, 175 West Concord. I also have a visual, if you guys would like to see this. Thank you, sir. Pass it on down. I appreciate that. My name is Todd Hood, 175 West Concord. I was recently made aware of the zoning change from an R2 single family to an R4 multifamily residential district. It's concerning to me for numerous reasons. As Dan stated, the flooding is very critical. My biggest concern here is the neighborhood, but also the safety issues, which I'm sure you're not aware of, so I want to bring you up to speed with that. Several years ago, a driver drove through my front yard and ended up in a culvert. Police was called, he was arrested. Another young man drove his car through my neighbor's yards, two of us, two different yards, run through my neighbor's yard, ended up, his car was ripped apart, stuck in my neighbor's fence and his tree. That's how crazy it is. I called the police, he was arrested. That was the second time my neighbor's fence has been run through. That's the second time, okay? Another man driving a Ford, or a Dodge Ram truck, jumped the curb, got stuck in my front yard, which I'm adjacent. I'm just about 20 yards down from where the property we're talking about. 5 months ago, another driver drove through the front yard, missed my mailbox by an inch, and he fled the scene. In two separate instances, drivers have driven over the new sidewalks has been placed down through there, and through the metal guardrail, which is on the opposite side, or the adjacent sides of the sidewalk where people's walking. And they've ripped down the guardrail, busted up the concrete. That has been replaced once. It has not been replaced the second time. So the guardrail is still busted, the concrete's still busted, and the AT&T has not come and fixed the communication lines. 2 months ago, another driver drove through my neighbor's front yard adjacent to us, run completely over the fire hydrant, busted that. Water was out for 8 hours. The city fixed that. That was detrimental to everybody for that day for sure. My neighbor Dan mentioned, which he did mention to you, his mailbox has been knocked down 5 times, which is about 10 to 20 yards right beside the property we're talking about. I would like to state one more time, my biggest concern is safety. I think this road sign that you're seeing there designates dangerous curves ahead with a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, and that's 10 to 15 yards right past is where the location of their zone 4 that you're trying to propose for that, that's where that sign is proposed. 5 years ago, my son was walking down the street right adjacent to this area, got clipped by a truck as he's walking to his grandmother's house. I think safety is very important in this area, and I don't think we're considering that here today, but I want you to be aware of that. As I stated above, now these are all things that I am aware of, not the things I don't even know about up and down that road, which is 175 West Concord. As I stated above, numerous accidents have occurred within feet of this proposed zoning change. Mr. Rita's proposed multifamily unit sits right in the dangerous curve, as you'll see on that. To add more vehicles entering and exiting this blind curve would be disastrous for us, our community, for people and everyone else. So I think this is life-threatening to our community. People there driving in and out. I think this is a serious issue. I don't think they thought this out, and I appreciate you guys for considering our well-being on the West Concord Drive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak against Z7 2025?
Good afternoon, Deanna McLaughlin, City Council Member, Ward 2, and neighbor 3 blocks from where this location is. You all have a handout that was prepared for you to review at your leisure. I'll be honest with you, prior to February 15th, I didn't have as much concern about this zone change request as some of the neighbors had, but everything changed on the 15th of February. Houses on Concord Drive and Kirby Drive that had never had water inside their living spaces before had feet of water inside their living spaces. Now, in the past, there's been water in non-living spaces, but those of you that are professionals understand that there's a difference between non-living space and living space. All of these houses had water in their living space. 3 apartment buildings on West Concord Drive were totally flooded. 66 people, families were displaced and had to be rescued by Clarksville Fire Rescue. Our problem in our area is all of the water that comes from the east side of Dover Road comes under Dover Road all the way through Ward 2, and it chokes right here between Concord and Kirby to go under Fort Campbell Boulevard to a sinkhole. Again, we've never seen flooding like this before. If you haven't been to somebody's house, and let me say that, times 17 people in my ward who have had to throw everything out because it was soaked and covered in mold, rip out their flooring and their walls just to have insurance tell them that it's not covered because they were not under the impression they needed flood insurance because they don't live by a body of water such as a river or a creek or a lake is absolutely devastating. And I'm just asking that we please just take a pause on this to see what we can do when hopefully the governor gives us an emergency declaration so we can look at how to flow storm water adequately through Ward 2. It's absolutely devastating that people have had to lose work. There's a family of 5 with a new baby on the way living in temporary housing that expires on the 21st. They don't know how they're going to pay to replace the electrical, the floors, and everything in their house. And having stood there with these people, I ask you, imagine if you were in that situation. I could imagine what I would be in that situation, but thank God that wasn't me. But these people are in that situation. People who have lived in those houses for 30 years have never had water in their living space until February 15th, and it came very close a couple weeks ago to happen again. So I just ask you, please vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have an opportunity for a rebuttal for anybody that was speaking in favor of this. If you would like a chance to rebut any of the. All right. Going once, going twice. All right. Commissioners, we're going to exit public hearing and go into regular session. Discussion.
How many units were you proposed to put in this zoning if it were to be approved?
I think we were looking at a 5-unit townhome.
Yes.
5-place.
Could you come up to the mic, please, sir?
I'm sorry.
I believe we were looking at a 5-unit townhome, a 5-plex.
So you're talking about 5 families?
5 families, yes, sir. And then, as it is now, you know, we could build 2 houses there, so, you know, be a few more people, but, you know,
5 versus
not I think Mr. Spain Howard maybe said historical estimate showed 15 units. I don't think that's possible on this property.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one other question. Thank you. That's
Okay.
one other question to the staff. Of course, the staff approved it, so the flooding or whatever wasn't any concern.
We were provided answers from the street department that there is an engineering analysis. There are platted lots. If you have specific questions or more technical reference to the drainage, I'd need to defer to the street department to let them ask why they're comfortable with that.
All of that was checked though and approved.
There is,
Before-
these two lots are platted. I do have a copy of that in here. It shows the drainage easement on the back of the property. That aligns with the mapping that exists for the FEMA flood area. But as far as what goes into their drainage reviews for new construction, I would need to defer to them for them to answer that.
Charlie, can I say something real quick?
No,
Just a
sir.
second.
No, sir. Thank you. Please have a seat. Could we get Chris Cowan up here, is he around? Maybe
Mr. Green may.
somebody
Joe
from the
Green?
street department?
Joe Green with the street department.
Yes, sir. Charlie over here had some questions to do with.
Yeah, basically, I know the answer.
Okay.
I know the answer that it's been checked and approved and everything, or the staff wouldn't.
It will go through checks and approvals.
Before anything, of course. it's
Before
built-
any development.
built on. I know the answer, but I
Sure.
guess I just wanted to hear it.
Mhm.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it. and appreciate
Our staff will review it for, compliance to city ordinances and that, what we can do to mitigate any sort of, flooding that might occur. That, there might be something, there might not, but we don't really know, and I can't speak on it until I see details and more specifics. But if it goes to further development, it will be required.
Right, without anything, it won't be built if it's not approved.
Correct.
For approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Wait,
Appreciate it.
wait.
One more question. Can't get off that easy.
I have a button to push.
Yeah.
Of course, it shows historical estimates to be, I do have a question for you. I'm gonna direct first question here. Historical estimates to be 12. Of course, this is 1 acre plus or minus, which would typically be 16 is the 12 because of the drop off in the back where the historical estimate is coming from.
The historical estimates is a 10-year average of every piece of R4 property that's developed in the community. So it takes a wide range of properties, some that do have drainage issues, some that don't. And then it factors in the total number of units that are developed per acre. So that number has been pretty constant over the past 20 years of 12 to like 11.5 units per acre. This does have the encumbrance in the back. And then depending on the style of structure you build, a townhouse usually gets a few less units. But I'm pretty firm on the historical estimate of 12 units per acre that could be accomplished. But obviously, there's a known drainage situation here, and you factor some things that have to be used to maybe mitigate those issues. They're probably going to lose a few of those units. So, but legally by ordinance, they could build 16 units per acre if they wanted to and stack them accordingly.
Okay. And then we might change the graphic that's up there to the one that's a little bit closer. I know it was referenced about the S-curve that's there. And of course, both of these lots are right in one of those curves. Do we have any anticipation where the exit would be or the entrance would be for that, with it being right there in the curve and potentially 5 to 12 lots or 5 to 12 residents?
We would analyze the site distance on that corner and where it comes out. So that would be part of the grading permit review process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Will they still have to submit for a site review if approved?
Yes, this is just the zoning phase, so if this is approved, they will submit to the planning commission for a site review. If it's less than 16 units, which it sounds like it would be, it'll be handled at staff level, so there will not be another public hearing on that. But at that time, we still circulate it to the police department, fire department, street department, gas and water, and others to get their input. That's the time we would look at the driveway location. They would ask for a site analysis to make sure that you have adequate sight in either direction, and it may move the driveway towards one end or another of the property. They likely don't have a site plan yet on this.
Thank you.
Commissioners?
Based on the staff's recommendation, I move for approval to be sent to the city council.
We have a motion for approval.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
I do have one question anyway. Again, Mr. Spain Howard, I know we're calling the encumbrance back there. The encumbrance is in the floodplain, so I mean, even though we call this a 1 acre lot, it really is, I'm just trying to think from when you were saying there's 2 lots there or there's potential 5, I would almost say 5 to 8, but I'm guessing, but have y'all measured or figured where that encumbrance would harm this piece anyway?
I'll be more than happy to show you. We've got a subdivision plat that was approved several years back. It shows the drainage easement along the back. It's more squared off. And then here is the flood mapped area. Mr. Chairman, if you'll pass that down as well. As far as the number of units,
Right. Okay, so everything had to go right.
And then there's standoff distances to that.
as far as the number of units and the encumbrances and things, I think it would probably be best to try to be answered by their civil engineer to answer that. I want to be clear when I say this. There are multiple different construction types. Townhouse design, they usually get less units, but if this property were to be sold to someone else with this zoning classification and they elect to build flats, then you may see 8, 9, 10, 11 units or up to 16 that are allowed per the ordinance. As far as what the applicant stated they plan to do, I mean, they could change owners. The property could sell tomorrow. But if you have questions about the specific layouts and things that they have planned, they do have their engineer that may be available to speak specifically to that.
Why don't we get Mr. Little up here just for a second?
Please, sir.
Just so we're all, and we can't tell you where or how to lay something out, but what do you determine your design? Would it push towards the front? Would it, you've got to, but,
Yes.
from an encumbrance standpoint, how much harm comes to the land that pushes your project?
I see just 1 tier units that front on Concord Drive.
Bless you.
And so 5 or 6 townhouse style units is what I'd anticipate. Usually Rick wants more and I try to make sure that we're meeting all the requirements and things. So if he says 5, probably 5. But maybe 6 with the width that we have. And so less than half of the lot is encumbered by the flood zone, which is backwater of Meadowbrook sinkhole. And I think we'll be able to detain, we may even be able to provide a little compensatory cut on the back of the lot. So we certainly are not going to raise any flood elevation as a result of this project. And the watershed of Meadowbrook sinkhole is large. I mean, there are just 2 sinkholes, I think, in Clarksville that are on the FEMA map, and this is one of them. It's because the size of the watershed. And so we're a small portion, very, very small portion of this. So I think we can mitigate any drainage impacts that we would create.
And this is the least of the properties that are there to the right of it. This is the property that has the least encumbrance by the water, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Everybody good? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those
Nay.
against?
Nay.
All right, motion passed. Z7 2025 passed. Suspend that one?
Just 1 second. You get the votes? Okay.
4-2.
Commissioners, your next application starts on page 14, I believe. Yes. It is Z9 2025. It's the application of Hunter Wynn and Jake Welch. Acreage to be rezoned is a little over 2 at 2.1. The request is to go from R1 Single Family Residential District to R2A Single Family Residential District, and it's located on the south frontage of Sladen Circle. Currently, 3 existing residential lots that have been cleared. This is in the South Clarksville planning area, and the applicant's statement for this request is to go from 3 lots to 4 lots. Department comments received in reference to this application indicate that a possible water main upgrade would be necessary. Clarksville Street Department stated sidewalks would be required, and to ensure drainage easements are maintained through the properties. It has recently come to the Street Department's attention that a land disturbance and stormwater alterations of the site requiring a grading permit have been made without authorization or proper inspection, and they issued a stop work order. There are no other department comments that you'll see there. The impact would be increased single-family residential density. The applicant's lot yield is 4. Our historic lot yield would indicate 6. This is in the South Planning area, and the future land use opinion map indicated suburban neighborhood. Staff's recommendation is for disapproval. This request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. This proposal is internal to an established R1 single-family subdivision. Increases in residential density are most appropriate along the outer edges of existing neighborhoods as transitions and buffers to more intense uses. Residential zone changes internal to an existing developed subdivision should be more gradual by nature. The proposed zone change from R1 to R2A reduces the minimum lot sizes from 15,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet, and the lot width from 90 feet to 40 feet. This would not be consistent with the overall development pattern internal to this existing subdivision. The developer also must coordinate with the street department to resolve matters related to grading and drainage. You have 2 aerial photographs showing the request, and then the final one is a zoning map overview of the request. And then you have some written emails that were presented in opposition, some of which do provide photos, and that runs through, I believe, like page 32, 31, and the next application starts on 32. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
Anyone have any questions? All right, we're gonna open it up for a public hearing on Z9 2025. Would anyone like to speak in favor?
Hi, I'm Jake Welch with the Jake Welch Construction, representing ourselves. One reason we're trying to take 3 lots and make 4 with this zoning are 2As for the setback purposes and square footage purposes, because on the lot 2, there's a stormwater drain coming out right kind of in the middle, so we're going to bury it and carry it to the back. And that being said, we can't build anything over the top of it, so we have to set a building to the side. And we figured if we're doing that, we could try to gain 1 more lot on this side, and versus it being right in the middle. And then on the back of the property as well, there's another drain that would set us closer to the road versus way back on the lot to help us with that as well. And then I do have a few plans that I brought with me if y'all want to look at them, what I was proposed to do. I'm not trying to put 7 lots, just a couple houses. Here's 2 of them. road was kind of eroding away where the pipe came out as well, so it needed to be addressed. Any other questions?
Anybody have anything? Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
All right, thank you.
All right, would anyone else like to speak in favor of Z9 2025? All right, seeing none, would anyone like to speak against Z9 2025?
My name's Robert Brady. I'm at 1249 Sladen Circle, right at the intersection of Sladen Circle and Hillwood Drive. And I was here 2 years ago when we had the same kind of development question going on the opposite side of Sladen Circle. And with your all's wisdom, that was not recommended to go from R1 to R6. Well, we're here today with another kind of situation in that, and our neighborhood, as represented over here, is strongly not in favor of this for the following reasons. Incompatibility with existing neighborhood character. The existing homes in our neighborhood are single-family dwellings on larger lots, consistent with the R1 zoning designation. The proposed R2A zoning, which allows for smaller lot sizes and increased density, would introduce housing that is fundamentally incompatible with the established character of our community. As you remember, our community was developed by Austin P. VII and his brother Robert P. In the 1960s. This change would negatively impact the aesthetic appeal and the overall ambiance of our neighborhood, which is more than 60 years old. Drainage and infrastructure concerns are high in our minds here. The property in question is located at the bottom of a hill. Increased density and construction could exacerbate the existing drainage issues with a home at the opposite end that faces out onto 4813. We are concerned that the current infrastructure may not be adequate to handle the increased runoff and potential flooding that could result from this development. In light of that, the development that was made on the opposite end of Sladen Circle has never had flooding, and as soon as the construction began, which is a nice home, single family, R1, we have now had runoff go across that road for the first time in the 20 years that I've lived there. We also have setting of an undesirable precedent. Approving this rezoning application would set a precedent for similar developments on other undeveloped spaces within our neighborhood. This could lead to a gradual erosion of our R1 zoning and a significant increase in density, ultimately transforming the character of our community in ways that are detrimental to our current residents. Finally, I know this isn't as big a concern, but we are a major thoroughfare for for wildlife. If you can come by my house anytime, you'll be able to see it anytime at nighttime at around 7 p.m. And in the morning time around 7 a.m., we have between 15 and 20 deer that will cross through our yard, along with the foxes, along with the groundhogs and everything as they make their way directly across the street into this proposed area that once used to be wooded. They make their way down there, and if something is built onto that area, we're afraid of the increase in traffic accidents, the loss of the habitat for those wildlife and stuff like that. So we urge consideration of the long-term impact of this rezoning proposal on our neighborhood. We believe that maintaining the current R1 zoning is essential to preserving the character, quality of life, and property values in our community, and we ask that this not be recommended.
Thank you, sir. All right, sir. Would anyone else like to speak against Z9 2025?
Good afternoon. My name is Juan Valadez, and I live directly behind the property that's going to be built on or endeavoring to change the zoning on. And I've been in that house about 1.5 years now, and I had been in the construction field for about 30 years. And my biggest concern is with the future residents of this area because of the water issues. I've just seen so many people that, you know, buy homes like this where you have hills directly impacting the home. They're stuck. Once the flooding comes, it's just, you've got mold and those kind of situations. So that's my biggest concern as I began to see all the trees being removed, and just thinking of the future residents of this area, of the concerns that they're going to have. I know I've dealt in this house that I'm in with walls, having mold and things like that, and having to install drains and so forth in my gutters and this kind of thing. And it's just it's a real issue that once you get involved in that, it's very difficult to correct and costly. So I just wanted to express that to you. It's like a valley right there, and I just couldn't figure out how in the world somebody would think about, building in that area. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, would anyone else like to speak against Z9 2025? All right, seeing none, Mr. Welch, would you like to rebut?
Talking about the drainage issues, these lots are on the lower end of the road, at the radius there. So the guy across the street shouldn't be impacted at all with the water on him. The guy behind him, or behind these lots, is way up on the hill, so there's gonna be another drainage ditch in the back of our lots to not flood anybody, even the house next door. There's no houses below it. It goes to 7 Mile Ferry, I think, or something like that. So there should be no issues there. Like I said, we're asking for the setback, or the R2A for the setback reasons to stay off of those drainage areas to accommodate those houses that I showed you. So, thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, we're gonna exit public hearing and go back into regular session, commissioners.
I got a question for the staff. If this goes to city council and gets disapproved, is there a way for them to adjust setbacks? Would that be a variance request?
If this gets disapproved, and say for that third lot or second lot he was discussing that he needs to move a setback one way or another, they can possibly replat. Those lots are larger, so they might be able to replat here. That'd be the first course of action. They could go to the BZA and get a side yard setback or work with the easement there if they need to. It really depends how it lays out. I've not seen a layout for the proposed lots, but there are a couple other remedies out there.
Okay.
Commissioners.
I make a motion for disapproval because the request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a properly made second for disapproval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against disapproval?
I'm against.
Motion passed for disapproval.
Commissioners, page 32, you have Z10 2025. It's the application of Hunter Wynn. This is for a request to go from R1A Single Family Residential District to C2 General Commercial District. It's a parcel fronted on the south frontage of Tinytown Road, south of the Tinytown Road and Pembroke Road intersection. It's a parcel that currently sits lower than the adjoining right-of-way and is currently being graded. It's also in the North Clarksville planning area.
I have the petition here.
Department comments in reference to this application. The Gas and Water has stated no gravity sewer is available. Clarksville Street Department stated a traffic assessment was required per traffic study guidelines. They were reviewed and accepted. No negative impacts were identified. Development would likely have to modify the existing traffic signal at Pembroke at the time of site plan development. Access will be limited and controlled by the access ordinance, and a sinkhole impacts a significant portion of the property. The current drainage at the sinkhole is insufficient, and an injection well will likely be needed as the area develops. There were no other department comments that were received. The impact of the proposed use would be increased traffic, light, and noise, the allowance of commercial uses to include permitting mixed use and multifamily residential, and a possible addition of the fourth leg to the existing traffic signal. This property is accessed from the Tinytown Road, which is State Route 236, and as stated previously, there is a sinkhole on site. Historical estimates related to multifamily would be 34 units. As stated previously, it is in the North Clarksville planning area, and the future land use opinion map indicates that this property should be commercial/industrial hybrid. Staff's recommendation is for disapproval. This request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. The proposed C2 General Commercial District does not fully align with the adopted future land use opinion map designation of commercial and industrial hybrid. Rezoning to more intense commercial use introduces the potential for adding a fourth leg to the existing traffic signal, possibly reducing the efficiency of the intersection by increasing signal length time and delays for all users. Rezoning to a more intense use should be in alignment with the commercial industrial hybrid future land use designation and combined and/or connected to the neighboring parcels to the east to provide an opportunity for a more appropriate driveway access, such as a shared driveway, a travel easement, or similar. The developer must coordinate with the street department to resolve matters related to grading and drainage. And per Clarksville Street Department, a sinkhole impacts a significant portion of the property. The current drainage at the sinkhole is insufficient, and an injection well will likely be needed as the area develops. The next 2 pages are the aerial overviews of the request. And on page 37, you have a zoning map overview of the request. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
Commissioners, any questions for staff right now?
Mr. Spain Howard, I do have one, and that is, and I'm not putting this out here for the applicant to try to do or whatever, but would there be another C that would make staff feel better? Right now, it's R2A, correct?
It's R1A, single-family residential
R1A.
currently. The commercial industrial hybrid zone, as many of you are aware, we're currently rewriting the zoning regulations as we speak. I think the future land use best aligns with M1 zoning and not C2. That would probably be the best zone that aligns with that commercial industrial hybrid. There are other factors that weigh heavily into this recommendation, such as adding a fourth leg to the light for one private individual user. And that's why the comments are associated about future combinations getting access at a location that doesn't require a fourth leg of the light becomes very important for this area to develop. So,
If it wasn't as a dense use, though, I guess is my question, that fourth leg wouldn't be as critical.
I think the delays that are associated could be, it hasn't been reviewed for that, so I'm real hesitant we'd have to sit down with our traffic professionals and evaluate that. Every specific use that's allowed in the zone may contribute more to certain traffic, and some could contribute less. I do think overall, when we make our recommendations, we don't go through all the hypotheticals that could exist with another request. We essentially, for lack of a better way of putting it, we hit the pitch that's thrown to us, and if that's something that people wish for us to evaluate, then they would need to amend their application for us to make that consideration, and then we could get you an answer specifically of how that would go down.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hubert?
And it's currently zoned as R1A, being 2.9 acres. How many homes could go in there?
Multifamily or single family? This is, it's pretty encumbered from the drainage standpoint. You do have the traffic light, so the only thing I'm really comfortable saying right now is you would probably have a restricted driveway access, and usually one driveway can equate to 2 possible lots through a shared driveway arrangement. So that would probably be but it's 2.9 acres. I realize there are some encumbrances on there, but I would think you could get more than 2 homes on there. You really got to factor in the distance from the signal, where a safe driveway could be provided for. This has not gone through the subdivision process, and those are all factors that make that determination when we receive comments from the street department, and the access ordinance weighs in, and there are some pretty strict requirements for the driveway connection purposes.
I don't know if it could be a driveway or a road that would lead back into there.
I would feel pretty comfortable saying that probably not adding public infrastructure to equate to one additional lot. A public road or a stub would probably be pretty expensive.
John Cross, right? That's fine, never mind.
Any other questions? All right, we're gonna go into public hearing. Would anyone like to speak in favor of Z10 2025?
Hunter Wynn, I reside at 540 Georgetown Road. I don't know, I might have picked the wrong zoning, either C2 or C5 is what I needed to go to. But we have talked about, I mean, there's a few more houses up there. Eventually, I'm trying to buy. I was gonna come off the light and do a service road. And I have Clint Head working on the sinkhole, or the injection well. He's in the process of getting all that turned in. My reason, I'm trying to get it zoned where I can apply for the liquor license. So that's my whole reasoning right now.
Any questions, Commissioners?
So you could apply for what?
A liquor store license. I'm not trying to do no residential.
Ms. Friedman, you have a question?
Yes, you stated that your intent is to buy additional properties along there to make it all one connection, which then everything would come access in and out
Service road
safely
to
at the light.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wynn, the only thing I will say, when
Yeah.
you said that, I'm not planning on, once we would zone it, it can be
Oh, I
planned
know.
on.
I
You know,
understand.
that's,
I understand.
that's why I was asking about something earlier anyway, though. But
Anybody else?
Just quick question. You may not know the answer to this, Hunter. To get a liquor license, you just need a zoned piece of property. You don't actually have to have the building yet, right?
That's correct.
So if you don't get a liquor license, what's the plan of the property?
I mean, I don't, I'm just,
Something else?
I mean, it's an investment.
All
I
right.
don't know.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right, would anybody else like to speak in favor of Z10 2025? Seeing none, would anyone like to speak against Z10 2025? Come on up, sir.
How you doing? So, I live at 3417 Polly Drive, which is a neighborhood behind there, Pembroke Place,
What's your name, sir?
David Forbes. So, when I come up the, Pembroke Road in Tyingtown and look across there, it can just rain and it'll flood. And the last major flood they had, it floods over onto the airport property and it goes up to that fence line. I mean, the water comes up to that fence line that separates the airport from that little dirt road that runs down to work. Looks like a utility thing. My main concern would be, and even with the, it looks like somebody's trying to change the topography of it. I don't think they've changed it enough to prevent the flooding. Because anywhere you have water, it's gonna flood if it rains sufficiently, which it has numerous times. I think it is more suitable for a catch for potentially all the water that's in that area. And that's probably why you don't have the neighborhood flooding as well, because it looks like it's a natural place, looking at the topographic maps. It's a natural water collection place, so I think it should be just used for that purpose. And there's a reason why nothing's been built there for like 32 years, because probably that reason. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak against Z10 2025? Seeing none, Mr. Wynn, would you like to rebut?
On the water issue, David Young, I mean, they've done the 100-year flood, and there's a spillway on the back where it'll go over into a sinkhole over on Outlaw Field. I mean, it's all designed right. That pad's still got to come up another 1.5 feet. I mean, there's culverts. I mean, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Injection well, but it's designed where it'll won't flood anything. I mean, there's a spillway in the back.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're gonna exit public hearing and go back to the regular session, commissioners.
I'd like to request something of the staff if possible. in this case, there's a lot of reference to this hybrid commercial industrial land use plan, as it's mentioned on the land use plan, future land use plan. Can we start having that attached where it says that, what designates that on these packets? Because the future land use plan gets referenced a lot on our
Just another
packets.
map.
Yeah, but can we add it?
Yeah, we can put that in the
I mean,
presentation.
we look at these and we don't see that sort of stuff on today's. I know we see it sometimes at the informal,
We can
those
start
sort of
adding a
things,
map
but
to
if,
the zoning cases next month.
you know, if a map's referenced in here, I'm a visual person. I like to be able to see that map. Because I look at what's attached to this and I see a lot of C2 around this zoning. And I know we discussed this at the informal that, you know, yes, it could possibly bring on a light, or hopefully TDOT would tell them they would have to do a right in, right out only would be my suggestion. But, and that where the injection well and the drainage would be is an encumbrance on the property as well. So that one side is the main use for it. But looking at the color-coded map of zoning here, there's C2 on the other corners and M2. So to me, that looks like commercial and industrial hybrid. This is just the one corner of that T intersection that's does not have C2 designated on it. You even have it in front of the neighborhood just down the road. Looks like maybe a eighth of a quarter of a mile.
Yes, I mean, I'll be more than happy to, a couple options if that's important to you before you vote. You do have the opportunity to defer. We can provide that as part of the presentation for this and all future. If that's something you would like to have in there, we can get that for you. I can't, from memory, tell you what all the other ones are, so I'm not able to do that on the fly. But I can attest that that's what it showed up on our map. So that's an option you do have at this moment.
Mr. Wynn, would you be okay with a 1 month deferral? Okay, well, then we can vote on it. I mean, I'm just trying to look at this C2. I feel like it's a little more consistent with what's around it.
Commissioners, any more discussion?
I make a motion for approval based on it having other C2 in the area, as well as the other departments didn't reference any concerns, and the opportunity as well to create it with the access being there at the light, especially if there's additional development down the road, and it would be safer for residents or safer for the drivers in the area.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a properly made second. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passed. Z10 2025 passed.
We get who voted what? By
I think there was
hands?
one against.
Only one against?
Only one against.
What
I
do
believe.
Okay.
Only
Correct?
Honey,
Commissioners, one against? All right.
only Commissioner Honeycutt
Mr.
against.
Honeycutt, I
Yep.
believe.
Got it.
Take that what you need. Thank you. Commissioners, your next application starts. Z15 has actually been withdrawn, so we'll go to 44. Z16 2025, the application of F&M Bank. Agent is William Ray. This request encompasses 7.5 acres. Requested to go from, let's see, M3 Planned Industrial District, which is a grandfathered zone that's no longer currently in the zoning ordinance, to C5 Highway, Arterial, and Commercial District. This request is east of Old Russell Pike and north of Stone Container Drive. The reason for the request stated by the applicant is they're planning to operate a used vehicle dealership and a vintage motorcycle museum on the property. This would be an extension of the zoning classification. It is in the St. Bethlehem planning area. There were no department comments of any concern presented in reference to this application. The impact would be the removal of the industrial development uses and overall reduction in the intensity of uses and still remain in the commercial allowances. This is in the St. Bethlehem planning area. The request does align with the regional commercial future land use opinion map. And we need to recommend a 1 month deferral. We're still awaiting the traffic assessment from the Clarksville Street Department. So we can open the floor for comments because it didn't go through, so.
All right, would anyone like to make any comments on Z16 2025? We are gonna do a 1 month deferral per, the staff's request.
We had the traffic study done and turned in, I think it was 2 weeks ago, done by Weekly Brothers. Said that there were no issues with it.
I did not receive any response back from the street department in reference to that.
Just for the record, your name?
David Gordon.
You received a response from CSD?
I received a response from Weekly Brothers
From
saying
Weekly
that the
Brothers.
street department had received it and approved it.
Britt looks like he's ready to hop up here. You want to shed a little light on this?
Looking at an email from 3/18
Okay.
that Chris says that the traffic assessment's acceptable.
No one responded to us. The last comment I have from them is our traffic assessments required. We're prepared to move forward with a recommendation awaiting a favorable traffic assessment. So
We have no increase in traffic.
I didn't
associated with
anticipate
issues.
anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
So
Thank you.
I guess we can get the street department to answer that concern.
Street department, please.
Yes, we did receive a traffic assessment for this development. Comments were provided back to the applicant, and if you all didn't get a copy, I can make sure that you receive that. But
No issues, everything good?
there weren't any issues that came out of that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So typically, staff will, when we review something last week at staff review meeting, even if we don't hear from you yet, we will still talk about what is staff's opinion if this comes back favorable. If it doesn't come back favorable, we may circle back up and discuss it, but I do believe we were in favor of this at the time pending hearing from you. It sounds like that communication just didn't get to us. So we're prepared to make a staff recommendation for approval, but commissioners, we don't have it all detailed out into the 3 or 4 comments. This is a pretty straightforward case going from M3 again, which the previous owner, Train, was using it for storage and training, and then was purchased, and now they're going to C5, which is comparable to both the comprehensive plan as well as the other zones and uses in the area. So, Mr. Chairman, we do need to still continue the public hearing, and then we
Commissioners,
can.
are you guys good with going ahead with this? Okay. All right, so we're gonna open it up to public hearing as normal. Would anyone like to speak in favor of Z16 2025? Okay. Seeing none, would anyone like to speak against Z16 2025?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Joe Shakinab, 637 Apple Mountain Court. This is in my ward, and I've been by there, and I'm in favor of this as opposed to apartments. I'd definitely take this.
Thank you, sir. I think that was in favor. Would anyone else like to speak against Z16 2025? All right, seeing no one, we're gonna exit public hearing and go into regular session. Ms. Streetman?
I just need to make a clarifying remark.
Go ahead. I can make the recommendation formal into the thing after her question if you would like
go ahead.
before voting.
Mine's not a question, I just need to make a clarifying remark that the applicant is F&M Bank, and I am long since being employed by F&M Bank, so I will be voting on this because I haven't worked for them in years. So just for the public's sake, I wanted them to be aware of that.
Thank you.
And I can read it too if you don't want to, Ms. Van Howard, as far as it being consistent, but go ahead.
It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The request that they're asking for is in alignment with the regional commercial district, and there's no detrimental findings of anything that we reviewed in reference to this. So staff is recommending approval.
And we can go by that as a second then, second.
No, we
need a
still.
motion second on it.
You mean-
I was
you
gonna
make-
say, it is consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. Is that good enough to?
Second that.
Motion for approval.
Second.
All right.
Sorry.
We're working our way through this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right. Z16 2025 passes.
All right, Z17 is the application of Diane Clevenger Pinkstaff. The request is right at 1 acre to go from R1 Single Family Residential District to R3 Three Family Residential District. Property fronts on the east frontage of Fantasy Lane, approximately 325 feet north of the Fantasy Lane and Candlewood Court intersection. The reason stated by the applicant is to split the property for better use of property and give more dense residential development. Description is currently a single-family residential home site. It is in the St. Bethlehem planning area. The Gas and Water Department indicated that possible water main upgrades would be required. The Street Department indicated sidewalks would be required along Fantasy Lane frontage. There is a power line that has potential conflict at future development, so the applicant must coordinate with CDE relative to a line relocation and easements that are associated with it. And then the school system comments are provided there under number 9. Access for the property would be on Fantasy Lane. The impact would be increased residential density. Historical lot yield for this request would indicate 9 lots. Or 9 lots or units, St. Bethlehem planning area, and the future land use designation of suburban neighborhood. Staff's recommendation is for disapproval. The request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. Increases in residential density are most appropriate along the outer edges of existing neighborhoods as transition and buffers to more intense uses. Residential zone change internal to an existing developed subdivision should be more gradual by nature. The proposed zone change from R1 to R3 reduces the minimum lot sizes from 15,000 square feet to 3,500 square feet and lot widths from 90 feet to 30 feet for single-family development. R3 zoning also permits duplexes and triplexes, and those would be based on those individual lot sizes requirements. This request would not be consistent with the overall development pattern for the area, and no environmental issues have been identified relative to this request. You have the aerial overviews for these properties there on the next 2 pages, and the zoning map overview of this request on page 55. And then you have several written statements of opposition, a few photographs, and that goes through, I believe, page 67. That's correct. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
Questions, commissioners? All right. We're going to open up public hearing. Would anyone like to speak in favor of Z17 2025? Seeing none, would anyone like to speak against Z17 2025?
Good afternoon. I'm Denise Dudley. I live at 443 Bluff Drive, and as you can see, Fantasy Lane is a very narrow road. 2 vehicles barely pass one another, and I think it would be inconvenient to have y'all were saying 3 condos or more.
So R3 zoning has the ability to be single family or attached units. So Mr. Mylan dropped off this application and said his plan was to build single family, but historically it would equate to 9 lots or 9 units. There would be the option of whoever owns this property divided however it could develop for.
Well, that would cause Fantasy Lane to be very small. And once we have 2 ways out in Candlewood to get on Old Russellville Pike, and once we get on Old Russellville Pike, we're crowded because they have put a new development over there close to Heritage and more apartment buildings being built, which comes into Old Russellville Pike. And once you get to we have two ways out. It's Cave Road or Russellville Pike, and once you get there, you're backed up trying to get out on Dunbar Cave. And I was on the understanding that if it's a rental, zone for rental, that our property value goes down, and if I'm incorrect, let me know if our property value goes down.
In
But-
reference to your question, I don't believe there's anyone here that is a licensed appraiser, so they would not be able to provide you with that answer.
But it's residential, and that's the way we would like to keep it there in our area, Camden Wood, to keep it the way it is. And I'm concerned about the traffic and the small road, and I disagree with the whole zoning thing. And thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, would anyone else like to speak against Z-17-2025?
My name is Mary Shillow. I also live back in that same neighborhood. There have been a few hundred new homes built right across Russellville. There's also been 3 different units of, I don't know how to describe this, townhomes with 5 or 6 per section. What about, the traffic is horrible now. Trying to get down Old Russellville Pike to Dunbar Cave. As she said, there's only 2 ways out of there, and you still have to go on to Dunbar Cave. Would there be a traffic study done if this, to me, there should have been a traffic study done the last time we had the few hundred homes built across Russellville Pike. And that's my concern too. And now, how many units did you say? 9 units? I'm trying, and
There's enough acreage with just over, it's almost 1.1 acres, that in the R3 can be either triplexes, duplexes, or single family, or all 3 at the same time. But on average, it would be about 9 units, but it could be 3 triplexes, a few duplexes, or all single family houses. It's up to
and how this
the
acreage,
developer.
because it looks like it drops down into a wooded area right behind that site. I mean, how does that work?
It's not as deep as you think it is. It's a longer, wider piece of property.
Okay, and drainage, because we do have trouble with drainage on Old Russellville at times.
If it rezones, or if they ever divide the property, it'll come back here for a subdivision or a site plan, and at that time, we'll evaluate the drainage and make sure the ditches and culverts are put in appropriately.
Okay, and do you know how many homes were built across the street there? How many hundreds of homes recently over the last few years?
I can provide that answer for you after the meeting. I don't have that in front of me right at this
Okay,
moment.
because there's quite a few, I mean, it's just, the whole traffic pattern is, would there be a traffic study? Because the whole traffic pattern is almost impossible to get out.
I can't answer that. There
Okay.
was a traffic assessment provided at the development stage for that property. This size parcel does not indicate the need for a traffic assessment. The street department did not request one, and they're the entity that reviews traffic for the area.
There's no request to reduce traffic for the area? Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
This property would not trigger the need for the street department to ask for a traffic
Okay.
assessment, and they did not ask for one.
Was
So
there a traffic assessment done when those hundreds of homes were built?
At
There
that time,
was?
there was, yes.
Okay, and there were no issues with that, is that right?
I think there were
Like with
some
the
improvements
light
that were
or-
required to be made from memory, but I mean, at this moment, I'm not prepared to answer
Okay,
those
okay.
specifics because that's not the application that we're reviewing at this moment.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We have room for one more to speak against Z-17-2025.
Anybody else from my neighborhood? I've already said, my name is Pam Nielsen. I'm at 440 Bluff. I've sent you an email. I have some serious concerns about this whole thing going in because it's totally inconsistent with our neighborhood. We have all of that development on the other side of Russellville Pike. All of the wildlife has come in to where I'm right on the river. So that's come in. Wildlife doesn't have much place to go. I know that might not be a major consideration. However, I think our green space is part of what makes our city beautiful. And that's part of the planning. Safety is a big thing for me. I'm a survivor of a home invasion where there was attempted murder, okay, at 440 Bluff Drive. And what I'm gonna say about that, that stuff never really hit the paper. And so be aware, the crime that we see, and I'm also a chemical dependency counselor, so I hear about a lot of things from my work. My point being is we have a lot of crime, and we know that with increase in density of housing, that usually comes in. That's just a part of that. And my hope is that we're able to maintain the safety of our neighborhoods. We do not have sidewalks where I live, so we have to use the streets. And people will use the cut-throughs to get from A to B. And as was said, we only have 2 ways out, and that Fantasy Lane is very, very narrow. So if there's anything that's, somebody's broke down, whatever, it gets even tighter. But there's also people that are walking there. Now, I know that you guys propose sidewalks, et cetera, but when we open the door, when we have this kind of zoning, this is a residential neighborhood, it's peaceable, and I would recommend it, even though I had a terrible thing happen to me. I would recommend that as a quality neighborhood. However, when we start building stuff like this, to me, it's totally inconsistent with that neighborhood. So I request that you vote no, and that's all I can say.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move out of public hearing and back into regular session, Commissioners.
I make a motion for disapproval based on the fact that there are increases in the residential density that are more appropriate along the outer edges of existing neighborhood and as transitions and buffers to more intense uses, and residential zone changes internal to an existing developed subdivision should be more gradual by nature. As the ward representative for this area, I cannot support going this drastic of a jump from R1 to R3. Especially when you can look at the map and see the vast majority of everything on here is R1, and across the way, it's only a step to the R1A, not the R3.
Second.
All right, we have a motion for disapproval and a properly made second. All those in favor of disapproval?
Aye.
Any against? All right, motion fails. C-17-2025 fails.
Long. Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, I think we're finally ready to get this one on to City Council. I'm passing you out the actual ordinance. This is something that the Code Department Director and I worked on from something that happened a little earlier this past summer. When new cell towers get built in our community, they typically come with a radius platted on them as part of the subdivision requirements. There are some older towers in our community that predate that requirement. We had one of those instances up there at Exit 1, and currently you can't build anything within a tower fall radius, and that one was asking to build a gas station within it, which ultimately, after talking to the attorneys, we had to let go because it didn't have a platted easement from back in the day. So this provides a little clarification, and what I like is it's kind of in the middle of the ground for this. So this ordinance updates the term fall zone. And then under 5.10 of site plan requirements, it adds the following language, and I'll just read, it's fairly short. Structures proposed within a communication fall zone shall be reviewed for use and occupancy. Only low occupancy, non-hazardous uses shall be permitted within the fall zone as determined by the chief building official. Pre-existing structures within the fall zone shall be considered non-conforming except those that are accessory to the communications tower or are not in the prohibited list of uses below. The next paragraph, the following structures and land uses are prohibited within a communications tower fall zone. Residential dwellings of any type, size, including assisted living facilities, hotels or motels, educational buildings, schools or daycares, etc., medical facilities, assembly uses, high occupancy retail or services or offices such as restaurants, nightclubs, bars, personal service, indoor amusement, or health clubs. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we will have to open the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, Ms. Streetman?
What does it leave?
What does it leave? Warehousing, self-storage, offices with 2 or 3 employees. There are some uses. Currently, there's nothing allowed, so I think this is a nice middle ground that says some things are allowed. Storage uses.
Are you done? 'Cause I've got questions. I'll go to the exit 1 one, for example. This seems prohibitive to surrounding owners if the tower is not leasing or owning enough land for their fall zone. Are we going to have restrictions on the tower builders to make their collapse zone fit the property that they own or lease? I'm okay with passing this, that only certain things can be within the fall zone, but it seems like you're regulating the property owners more than you are the people who are building the towers, which are the cell phone companies and the people who can afford to design a tower that falls in a certain way.
Yeah.
They do this all the time. Otherwise, big cities would have no cell service because they put these on top of high rises. So the collapse zone is available to be made in a way that it can collapse down on itself and barely impact an exaggerated area. But like if you take the exit 1 one, that is a small plot of land. They typically, you'll see it on our stratum maps, our GIS maps. It's a little square this big, and everything else around it, if we propose something this restrictive, is affected, and that's a different property owner. So to me, unfortunately, I would be against this if there's nothing in our ordinance that puts those same regulations on the cell tower builders.
So yes and no is the answer. So any new cell towers that get platted or built are required to have this for the properties around them. So they're acquiring it.
Okay.
We don't actually, there's not a lot of new cell towers getting built. We're talking to one right now up off Tylertown Road in the county. But if they do decide to build there, they will be required to have an easement around it equal to the fall zone radius, whether that's the height or a break point therein. There are some older towers. Maybe it will behoove us to figure out where those are. There's a handful, not many. Exit 1 is a good example that went up prior to that rule or without doing that. And it can, when it's in the corner of a property, affect surrounding properties. So the answer is yes, it can affect surrounding property owners who the tower may not be on. But I don't expect this to be more than a handful of towers in the community. But if you decide to defer it, we will try to track those down and maybe show where those properties are.
How long do you think you would need to show where those are?
I'd have to work with Daniel. It'll be a little more digging because we'll have to see if there are plats of the radius around
One
them.
meeting or 3 to 4
Maybe
meetings?
one, maybe two. Maybe two. I'd like to get next month, we're really hoping to get the Fort Campbell and the Tiny Town overlay back to City Council because they want it by May. So if I can get it in April, at least we have a month to play with in case we need to defer it here. That's going to be our focus. If we can map
push it to June then? That'd give you 3 months. It'd give you a little bit extra time. I know y'all got some other projects.
Yeah, let's do 2, and then if we need another month, we can tack it. I'll let you know before then.
Does anybody else have any questions before I do a motion to defer? Ms. Streetman does.
Yeah, we can do.
Because I know you said it does leave some, which is more than what is allowed now. Where's the language that in the city code as it stands now that prevents anything?
It's under the subregs, isn't it? The radius is put on.
No, it's in the telecommunication power section. I don't have that number. I can look.
It's under 510 right now.
Well, I'm
under the
looking under
zoning
510.
ordinance.
MM is a new thing. It ends at LL currently.
Yes. It'll be under the conditional uses of a cell tower. So let me pull up the zoning ordinance. My tablet's trying to die on me here. But
Is there anything like this in the county?
they do still require the easement for new towers. They obviously don't have as many towers due to the density of people, but
But do they have the same language that we're trying to put onto the city?
No, we were gonna try it first in the city and then see if Rod, at the Building and Code Department in the county wants to do it as well. The issue that
It should be
arose
the
that
same.
brought this up was in the city, so that's why we started with that.
Let me just open it up and then.
Yeah, I'm looking this up, so if you wanna open up the floor.
All right, we're gonna open this up to public hearing. Would anyone like to speak in favor of Z3 2024? All right, would anyone like to speak against Z3 2024? All right, seeing, go ahead, come on up.
Hello, my name is Summer Wall, and I live in the county, and I found it interesting that you brought this up because we just had a new cell tower built right off of Highway 48, that if it didn't collapse in on itself, it would fall on the highway. So just pointing that out for you as a new cell tower that was just built, just as a thought there, hearing this, and somebody that drives on Highway 48 every day. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh.
Would anyone else like to speak on Z3 2024? All right, we're gonna exit public hearing, go back into regular session, commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that
Hold on.
question
Mr.
first,
Kingston,
yeah.
we're gonna answer.
It's under page 119 and 120, communication towers. It's a pretty, and 121, it's 3 pages of conditions, and it really falls under that letter F, setback. It's a page, I don't want to read it out, but
Can you
it
include
sounds like
that in the, when we
Yes.
get back
And
from
you giving me
deferral?
page, this is in zoning or it's in the zoning?
City
It's
zoning
not-
ordinance. I will send you all a PDF of just those 3 pages.
Okay.
And we can always talk a little more at the informal next month about the details. Sounds like there's one detail we need to get hammered out.
That works, but before you make yours,
No,
I
go ahead.
still think
Keep going.
I mean, if we're looking at doing this, if it's important to do it for one, I think it's important to look at doing for the other. So I think if it's gonna go forward to the city, it should also go forward to the county. That's just my opinion, especially if we're already talking about deferring it.
And can I ask another question here? I know I'm already gonna make the motion to defer. It falls in lines again, we're doing a full county and city zoning rewrite. Is there a rush while we're trying to do this now instead of just waiting for it? If it's something that is needed or wanted, why not have it just done during that rewrite, since we're paying those companies to do the rewrite at the moment?
I don't disagree with you, but we started this back in August. And
I
it's been
remember,
deferred,
yes.
and we weren't even under contract yet until December with the zoning. We started the zoning in December. Table
To
it.
save y'all some work, could I table this and we just see how it comes in on the new?
Do you all see this?
zoning.
Do you all see this as a beneficial thing to look at, but maybe iron out the details in the code rewrite?
Yes, 100%.
I mean, our anticipated time to bring the new code back would probably be a year from now. It'd be late first quarter next year.
I don't think we've had a ton of zoning cases, and I ain't been on here as long.
Why don't we
sir.
just-
But I haven't had a ton of cases come before us that I know of, that I'm aware of, that involve cell towers.
I think if we just defer it indefinitely for the time being, and should it arise that it needs to be dealt with prior to that, then that opportunity's there. We could pull it back up. We could bring it back.
Well, that can be done
I agree.
anyways, even if I
Yeah.
table it.
That's what I meant.
Oh.
Table
Table or defer.
indefinitely, either way you look at it,
Yep.
then we have the opportunity to bring it back if need be versus putting a timetable on it.
That's, yeah.
Well, if a rezoning comes up before, then you guys would let us know if there was a cell phone tower situation, okay?
We've got to review that whole document anyways.
Yeah. We'll keep working on it a little bit. We'll get
Yeah.
that map at least figured out, but.
I see why we're continuing working on it, because it was brought up
Yeah.
back in, I believe it was August or July last year.
It was brought up once, deferred from the floor with some questions, went back to work, brought it back again, so.
Okay.
All right.
I would make a motion to table this issue.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to table and properly made second. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes to table unanimously.
Okay.
And I do appreciate the staff taking time to work on this issue.
Oh, we
but
gotta get it right.
There's not gonna be I'm probably gonna be against a whole lot of zoning text change until we get this rewrite that we're paying to have done, so we can review it as a whole.
The only other one we have to work on is the city has asked for the Fort Campbell and the Tiny Town overlay, and that goes hand in glove with the electronic message centers, and that's the only other one we're working on. All the rest of our I should scratch that. We're also doing the downtown code, but that's sort of in concert with doing the overall code rewrite as well. We're just using two different firms, one that's familiar with downtowns, one that's familiar with big cities. Yeah, the less work right now, the better. We only have one subdivision case, so rather than just doing consent agenda, do you just want to see if anyone wants to talk about this?
Yes.
All right. Just read the one case into the record.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Commissioners, we'll move into the subdivision portion of our agenda. That's case number S23-2025. The applicant's Marvin Pitts. The request is for preliminary plat of Marvin Pitts property, Boolean Drive, lots 1 and 2. It was previously called 711 Boolean and right-of-way dedication. The staff recommendation is for approval subject to the 3 conditions, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer those. Otherwise, we can have a public hearing.
Commissioners, questions, concerns? We're gonna open it up to public hearing. Would anyone like to speak in favor of S23-2025?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Hopkins. I'm with the developer, the Ferber Company. We're looking to subdivide the corner to build a speedway truck stop there. And yeah, asking for approval.
Is that site plan on this?
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of S23-2025? All right, seeing no one, would anyone like to speak against S23-2025? All right, we're gonna move out of public hearing back into regular session, Commissioner.
Hey, Commissioners, just a point of information, that speedway he discussed is on the agenda later for the consent agenda.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and properly made second. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I need to reword my phrase of that. Motion for approval subject to those conditions listed.
Yes, sir, appreciate that. Motion passes with the conditions, S2023-2025 passes.
All right. Next case up, we do have, before we get to the consent agenda, we do have a landscape plan appeal. It's LA 2-2025 for Armored Trucking Academy at 1490 Dunlop Lane. Brad, you're handling that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Parker, and then this will require a hearing.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Mr. Tyndall, case number LA2-2025, that is the landscape appeal, the applicant's Armored Trucking Academy. The request is to remove the required landscape buffer D on the eastern and western border of the site. It's at 1490 Dunlop Lane. It is in the M1 zoning district, and the growth plan is in the rural area. I'll read the applicant's statement into the record. The reason for the variance request is the owner thought he was building an industrial and did not understand the impact of adjacent ag zoning. They constructed a pad for CDL training using existing driveway, which followed closely along the east property line. The owner did not understand the approval process and was advised improperly. He is now trying to do everything correctly. It was not a deliberate act. The justification for the variance is the adjacent properties are likely to be developed as industrial instead of single family, and the property to the west is likely a jurisdictional wetland, and the property to the east is cropland with a residential structure on the opposite side of the subject property. If they were industrial zones, a landscape buffer and variance would not be needed. Department comments, there were none of any concern. If you want to go to page 3 of your packet, you'll see the aerial overview of the site. You can see the shaded area, which is the site. The following page is the landscape variance exhibit that was provided by the applicant. Just for some clarification, this is showing what a landscape plan that would meet the requirements would look like. They are requesting to remove the plantings on the eastern and western side that are shown. Again, the proposed use is a CDL truck driving training school. There is a site review later on. that matches this. The crosshatched area is gravel area that does exist. If there's questions for the staff, I'll try and answer those. Otherwise, we will need to have a public hearing. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for staff? All right, we're gonna move into public hearing on LA 2025. Would anyone like to speak in favor?
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Grimpler, the owner of Armored Trucking Academy here in Clarksville, Tennessee. So to reference what he had spoke about as far as the misleading, so I've created a high school program for CMCSS. I'm sure it's been plastered everywhere, but the building that is actually located on this site plan, that is a building that is supposed to be donated from CMCSS because of what we're doing for the high school program here in Clarksville. Where that building is supposed to be set is right off of the actual existing driveway. So when he had mentioned as far as I guess people telling me which way to go with it, I was told, hurry, 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 get this thing done. We got to get this high school program up and running for this year. Obviously, it did not go as planned. We have had a lot more rain than we have probably expected over the last couple of years, and it slowed quite a bit of this down. Now, the farmland that is adjacent to the east side of it, across from where this building is going to be set, that gentleman has used this driveway for as long as I've been utilizing the property and we're seeing it. When I was going out with Josh Ward and Chris Self originally to see the property to see if it was even done, he was utilizing this driveway as well. So all we did was widen the driveway, obviously for semis, but it's also widened the driveway to also help him out as well for farm equipment to be able to get onto this land. The west side of the property is still all trees. So as far as any type of buffer or anything like that, we're not utilizing anything on the west side because it is a complete wetland and right now lakefront property that's been created in Clarksville. So the property from where the driveway comes in past where the building will be set all the way to the back is strictly just going to be a rock pad that we utilize for CDL training for obviously the residents here of Clarksville, Fort Campbell Military, as well as now the new high school program that we have developed. So if there was any other questions, by all means.
Questions, Commissioner? Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of LA 2025?
So that he doesn't have to put the buffer in.
All right. Seeing none, would anyone like to speak against LA 2025? All right, we're gonna move back into regular session, Commissioners.
Make a motion to waive the landscape buffer requirement on the eastern and western border of the site.
Second. All right, we have a motion and properly made second on LA 2025. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
Aye.
All right, LA 2025 passes.
All right. That might be the last public hearing. We'll see.
Don't bet your money on it.
All right. On from SR 70 down, and I'll read the statement. All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the staff of the Regional Planning Commission and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the audience, commission, or staff may request an item be removed for separate consideration. Mr. Parker, please read the cases into the record.
Okay, Case number SR 70, 2024. The development is Pembroke Speculative Warehouses. Staff recommendation is for approval subject to the two conditions listed. Case number SR 10, 2025. Atlas Coffee number 2 is a drive-through coffee shop. Staff recommendation is for approval subject to the three conditions listed. SR 18, 2025. Clarksville Spaces Old Russellville. The proposed use is office space, and it is subject, staff recommendations for approval subject to the two conditions listed. SR 19, 2025, Double Dogs Clarksville. It is a restaurant. The recommendation is for approval subject to the two conditions listed. SR 21, 2025, Hammer Concepts It's an industrial use. The staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the two conditions listed. SR 22-2025, the proposed use is a Frito-Lay distribution center. Staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the two conditions listed. Case number S23-2025, it's called The Columns. It is a retail office and warehouse. Staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the two conditions listed. SR 24-2025, Mina Sadic Shopping Center and Gas Station. Recommendation is for approval, subject to the three conditions listed. Case number SR 25-25 is a Speedway gas station with commercial and standard pumps. Staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the five conditions listed. And finally, case number SR 2625 is Armored Trucking Academy, Dunlop Lane. Again, the proposed use is a CDL training facility. Staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the five conditions listed.
In addition, Commissioners, we have 3 abandonments in the county. These do require public hearings unless, we'll just cover them under the consent agenda unless anyone is here to speak on them. First one is AB 6-2024, application of the Montgomery County Highway Department for partial right-of-way abandonment of Happy Hills Acres Road, abandoning 0.58 miles of that road. Next one is AB 2-2025, application of the Montgomery County Highway Department for the entire length of Falk Road, approximately 0.45 miles. And AB 3-2025, application of the Montgomery County Highway Department for partial right-of-way abandonment of Wees Road, abandonment of approximately 0.9 miles of Wees Road. Does anyone in the public need to pull any of these for further public hearing? If we don't pull them, they'll be approved in one motion by the Planning Commission. All right, Commissioners, anything being pulled? Didn't think so. All right, Mr. Chairman, over to you for the consent agenda.
All right, Commissioners, you heard the items read for the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion approved, properly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Consent agenda passes.
All right. Final item on your tablet says profit and loss statement. This will be the profit and loss statement through the month of February. Happy to answer any questions and appreciate your approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion properly made second on the profit and loss. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Nope. Public comment.
Public comment.
All right, we're
See
gonna
none.
we're gonna open it up for any public comments here at the end. Does anyone like to speak?
Going once, going twice, so.
I see somebody coming up here. Name and address, please, sir.
My name is Ronnie Houghton at 676 Vaughn Road. What I can tell you is that for the past 5 months, I have been investigating some of these drainage complaints of the city. What I found out is very troubling to me. The street department has not been doing their job, point blank. I have read that manual through and through. I have a degree in business management, and I've studied it. And I can tell you that what you're doing is, or what they're doing, and even this body probably, you're trying to get away with the bare minimum as possible. That is not sufficient. You have drainage issues in this city that are not being taken care of. They are not being handled. As a matter of fact, I'll read you something from the Stormwater Management Manual. In section 3, it says the scope of the ordinance. No person shall develop any land within the corporate city limits of Clarksville, Tennessee without having provided for adequate stormwater management measures to that control erosion and stormwater runoff quantity and quality in compliance with the ordinance of the city Stormwater Management Manual. That's Clarksville Stormwater Management Manual in Appendix E, page 5. The thing I want to focus on is where it says stormwater runoff quantity, the amount that's there has to be considered. When you are proposing subdivisions to be developed and you have a drainage basin and you plot down a bunch of houses next to that basin without making that larger to hold more capacity, you're gonna have flooding issues. You're gonna have other residents of the city that's going to approach and start to complain. And when they complain, they're gonna be to a street department that is not taking them seriously. They have not been writing down the complaints, and it's in my next month's report. They haven't been investigating them. They haven't been addressing the needs as recommended. They've been faulty in their job. And I've been investigating this for the past 5 months. Next month is my last month that I'm gonna submit reports. And it's gonna be very telling. So doing the minimum is not good enough. You need to do more for the city, for the people, and for us all. Quit doing the minimum. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to make public comments?
Sure.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, properly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Done.